watching Property TV.
Hello, welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin, and this is the show where you can have all of your property related questions answered by our team of experts. And joining me today is Hayley Andrews, CEO of Your Freedom Empire, investor, developer and educator. How's all that?
All that in one mouthful.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Very impressive.
Well, welcome anyway.
Thank
welcome
you.
to the studios. And on your right is John Howard, property developer, investor, author and broadcaster.
New title, thank you very much.
Well, we try and be innovative.
Change it up a bit.
Here on Property TV, yes. Welcome to you, John.
Thank you.
Have you had to drive all the way in from
Less
Ipswich?
than an hour on the train, as I keep telling everyone.
Right,
Great place
okay.
to live.
I do keep promising to visit.
You
don't
do,
I?
and lunch is getting cold, to be fair.
Well, okay. Well, let's hope we can do it shortly.
Yes.
So we'll get straight on with the questions, and you're going first, John.
Yeah.
I've been approached by English Heritage to have a blue plaque affixed to the outer facade of my house, as they believe someone quite famous apparently lived here in the past. If I allow this, will it have any detrimental effect on my property in terms of any alterations or improvements that I may wish to make in the future? And potentially, could I resist having it fitted?
Well, first of all, Stephen, if the fact they said the past, until the person said that, I thought they're talking about you. But obviously not, because in your penthouse you probably can't have a blue plaque put on there. They probably wouldn't allow, the freeholder probably wouldn't allow it anyway. So it's very interesting. Different towns and different cities award these buildings with these blue plaques, and it's normally a historical society who do it. You can resist it, of course, because it's your
English
property.
Heritage, isn't it?
Yeah, English Heritage. I'm not sure English Heritage actually, it's more historical societies that do it, supported by English Heritage.
Right.
Now you can resist, it's your property, you don't have to have them on, but I would say actually it probably may not increase the value of your property, but it certainly makes it a more interesting property. And when you come to sell it, it has a certain, credibility to it.
I suppose that depends who's lived
That's
there.
what I
Well,
was
if it's
gonna
Jack the
say.
Ripper, well, they don't know who Jack the Ripper was, do they? So it probably doesn't matter on Jack the Ripper, but it's not a good example, is it? But I think it has certain merit, and it's quite an interesting thing. And you might want to, you may not have known, you may want to discover and research the history. So I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
It doesn't have the same effect as any kind of listing.
Absolutely not. It might be on a building that's in a conservation area. It might be a building that's listed because it could be old. It might be many years ago that someone famous lived there, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, you could have a modern artist who's has a plaque, because they've lived there. So no, a nice thing to have on your house. Nice thing to have.
Have you come across this, Hayley?
No, I've not.
Don't have many in Dudley.
Not been fortunate to lived in a house or have any of my properties with someone famous there. I think it just comes down to you as an individual, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you're happy for it, I would definitely ask who it is.
That's good advice. Before, just check who it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
absolutely.
think it's a nice thing to do, and I think as I said, it doesn't do any harm at all.
No.
It might help you sell your house for a bit
And
more money
maybe
as well.
it depends on how private you are as well, because of course if it is someone that was
Yeah.
famous and
Not
people
with
are going
You
to
don't
come.
window.
you don't want people knocking. You don't want
Yeah.
people knocking on the door.
Yeah.
Now I've got quite a large parkland where my home is, and I've got a footpath running across it, and I have people in the summer walking across my parkland, stopping and having a picnic. And when you ask them, "Can I help you?" No, we're just here having a picnic, and thank you very much. So there you go. So you don't want them knocking on your door or picnicking in the garden, do you?
John, on that subject, I used to live out at Henley-on-Thames, and we were right on the Thames, and our garden went onto the Thames. And more than once, I come out and saw people pulled up in a boat and picnicking in my garden.
Yeah,
you
can
know,
I help
sort of
you?
thing.
And they
Yeah.
go, no, I'm fine,
all right,
thanks.
yeah.
It's amazing. If you did it in their garden, they'd be pretty annoyed.
Yeah.
Anyway, there we go.
Okay, well, that's a good answer. I think in some ways it's good to encourage sort of history and heritage,
exactly.
isn't it, really? I think it's rather
It's
nice.
a nice thing.
I can understand the concern, though. You're thinking, well, I wonder if it will affect it. in
And people
terms of-
knocking on the door is the biggest thing, I'd say.
Yeah.
That would be my only concern. really.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you very much, John. Hayley, your first question. Can the panel give me an indication of the typical rates of return on the various sorts of investment I can pursue? In particular, I'm thinking of student accommodation, HMOs, or straightforward buy-to-let. Now, I know that's a pretty complex sort of question because it's going to relate to both the area and the type, isn't it, in a way?
Absolutely, as well. And we're talking about return here. So I'm not FCA regulated, so I'm not legally allowed to give what's classed as financial advice. So what I can do is tell you.
We'll treat it as a guess.
Yeah.
How's that?
I can tell you what I would look for.
Okay.
I look for a 30% return. If you are looking at HMOs, it's relative to, obviously, what are you looking to achieve? What areas are you in? And are you able to achieve that in those areas? So I think it's more about individual to you, the investment you're looking to buy.
Okay, can I just pick you up on that? You're looking for a 30% return.
Mm-hmm.
On well, you're not going to get that on a buy-to-let, are you? Unless, of course, you build in the capital gain. So
well,
is that your...
No, so I don't build capital gain in. So if I'm getting a 30% return, I'm creating something that's giving me that 30% return.
Okay.
Yeah, so I may not be buying a single house, turning it into a HMO, or I may. I'm forcing the appreciation, adding value, buying below market value, and then getting a better return off the back of that.
Okay.
So it's going to come down to the investment you're buying, really. What I would say is, if you're unsure, so I look at the return, but I also look at how quickly do I get my cash back as well. And so how quickly do I get that? So I look for 2 years. I think you're about the same, aren't you? 2 years?
Yeah, so we look at for 30% net return, 30% return after all costs, including interest and everything else on a development. But I think that's hugely impressive to do it on an investment. I think I might send you some money.
You should.
if I'm allowed to say that on air, because that's John, a fantastic return.
We've been in property, both in the property development world, and you do tend to do it on 30-30-30, don't you? You know, 30 for land, 30 for the build, and 30 profit. You know,
less common these days.
Less common.
More like
less now.
40-40-20. But that's kind of the.
I wondered what I've been doing wrong all these years. Go.
Yeah.
But that is impressive on rental stuff. Now the question I have, I've never really been involved in that sort of letting market as such, but it just occurs to me where you've got an HMO, you've got a presumably higher turnover of people within that sort of environment than you have on a straightforward buy-to-let thing. Don't the admin costs sort of start to wipe out the extra profits?
No, because you do all of that up front. So you look at, obviously, management, you look at void periods, you look at higher turnover of tenants, and you do all of this and stress test the deal before you even step in and make an offer. So that's part of your due diligence phase. If you're doing the research right, the area stacks up, you know who your audience is, and there's good demand, and you understand the competition, and you're monitoring that area as well. I monitor my portfolio on a quarterly basis, and I always look at the worst performing property, and then I will make that better or sell it. Simple as. So constantly monitoring that area, so you're not left with a property that you can't let out. So no, it doesn't happen to me anyway. I run at 98% occupancy.
Do you find the voids are pretty consistent between the different types of letting?
Between HMOs and buy-to-lets? So buy-to-lets tend to stay longer. So you do have a higher turnover of tenants with HMOs. But if you're in the right area, as one person's moving out, someone else is moving in. So as long as you have, a competent lettings agency and management team in place, then of course it doesn't affect your occupancy levels, and you're still running at the highest occupancy you possibly can. Okay. One of the things you can do is obviously stress test that, along with interest rate rises, management going up, and longer void periods, to make sure that you're still comfortable. Best case scenario, mid, and worst case scenario. So
how impressive is that?
It's quite organised.
Hayley, I'm seriously impressed. That is some answer.
So, John, any final comment on that?
Well, I think it's all been said. I'm hugely impressed with the answer. I need to sharpen my game up a bit.
I think I am too. I'm really impressed with your rates of return and the way you approach it.
Fantastic.
I think that's
absolutely
very
brilliant.
good.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the difficulties. We have a lot of questions in about what should I do, how should I set my business up, how should I run it, and I think that sort of meticulous planning and examination.
I
of what
also
you're
think
doing.
people do exactly the opposite to what Hayley suggested. They go and find a property and they get all excited and agree to buy it, and then start unraveling what the return might be, which is listen to what Hayley says.
Well, I really like the point that you made. You said I look at my worst performing property and focus on that. And that's the key, really. So it's very easy, isn't it, when people do, oh well, I've worked it out. I'm going to let it out 52 weeks a year times £500 a week or whatever, and think, hold on, doesn't quite work that way.
It's about doing a sanitary check on your portfolio, and that is, and you may have to adapt and change and
anticipate the problems.
Exactly, and you can anticipate them before they become a problem if you are monitoring it correctly. So that shouldn't never happen.
All right, thank you both very much for that. That's all we've got time for in this half of the show. So join me again after the break when we'll ask John and Hayley some more questions.
You are watching Property TV. You are watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin and I'm with John Howard and Hayley Andrews. Welcome back.
Thank you.
John, your second question. Let me have a look. Can the panel suggest a method of finding attractive investments and purchases? These opportunities are often hard to find as the agents seem to have their favourite customers, and often the deals,
I hope so.
And often the deals that are left are not that attractive.
Very interesting. Well, the answer is guilty as charged. I think. Hopefully, hopefully, not so much these days. So
they're your words, not mine.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And I'm proud to have some good contacts. I've built them up over the last 40 odd years. My problem is a bit like yours, Steve, and a lot of the people I've worked with over the years and worked very well with, agents and deal finders, they're all retiring. And it's a new breed coming through, and that's one of my problems. But what I would say is the estate agent probably isn't the person or the place to go, estate agency, to find the right deals anymore, because everything has to go on Rightmove. As soon as it's on Rightmove, the whole world know about it and so on. So you have to be a bit smarter and think outside the box a little bit. Commercial agents never market property very well. Rightmove doesn't really work for commercial agents, so that's one that I would definitely be looking into. Commercial, okay, slightly more sophisticated deals, probably more conversions from commercial to residential, but certainly they're definitely one that I would be looking at. Goodness me, auctions. I'm a big fan of auctions, as you know.
Don't you have a book on that?
Do you have a book on it? Absolutely, yeah. I wasn't allowed to mention that, but thank you, Hayley.
Now then, we'll have no advertising.
No advertising on this. I've never paid for any advertising for it either. So, but auctions are, a great source of finding deals. A great source. You have to be organised and you need to know why it's on the market and why it's in the auction and so on. But I would auctions. The great thing about auctions is 3,500, 4,000 properties put in an auction every month in the UK. 70%, 80% of them sell. But there are properties that don't sell that you can potentially buy afterwards. So I would get hold of the local auctioneer. They'll be much more friendly in a way than the estate agent will be, because the estate agent's in the retail market on the whole, whereas the auction market is the trade market. So they're the two things.
Well,
Commercial and auctions are the two things I would look into.
Interesting idea, isn't it, to approach the auctioneers for stuff that didn't sell? I think that's quite a clever idea.
Thank you, Stephen. You don't often give me a compliment like that. I'll take it.
No, well, I know you too well. No, that's the trouble. Hayley, any comments on that?
No, other than get into the estate agent's black book. I mean,
Well,
as
exactly.
John said, John's been doing it for 40 years. I've been doing it for 20. You've built those contacts up over the years. Be the go-to person. Be a good, solid person that actually does what he's,
Exactly. Trust is important.
Exactly.
There's some industry sort of standards there, though. I mean, I was always taught, but by the time it gets to the estate agent, it's too late.
To a point.
That's number one.
Well, I mean, you really want to be where the estate agent has got a new listing and they come to you before it goes to the market.
Or after it's been on the market and
For a
it's
while,
all been messed up and they just want to get it sold.
Yeah.
Quite
So-
interestingly, John, one of the other keys with estate agents, that I've found over the years, if you find a property that's on an agent's books that is totally out of his area,
Yes.
have a
or her
look at
area.
it, because either it'll be much too expensive because
Yeah.
he's gone to the local agents and he's just found one that will put it on at what he wants, right?
Yeah.
Or alternatively, he's messed up. He doesn't know the market, so he's underselling it to just get rid of it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a
And some of the really big agents, big commercial agents who aren't used to the area, and if it's a small property with a really big commercial agent, they're too small for them to bother about. Really, they are. They'll let. They'll let one of the younger members of the staff put it on and do it all, and they may make a mistake, they may not be that interested in it. So it's crumbs from rich men's tables in a way, and that's
You can make a lot of money out of
absolutely
the crumbs, though.
The crumbs,
I
absolutely.
think you're right. I know I bought a Muse property in London some years ago, and I bought it off quite a famous agent, but again, totally out of area. And I said, well, I just want it, I'll take it. I don't even need to go round because I know what it is. I know all about that Muse. I know everything there is. And they said, okay, fine, well, you can have it. And it was way under price. It was probably 150,000 at the time, under what it should have been.
1942, that was a lot of money.
They phoned me up and they said, have you found oil underneath it or something? And I just said, no, it's just a nice property. And, ended up buying it. But they totally undersold it. And that does happen occasionally.
Not so much as it used to,
no,
but it does happen.
But again, that's down to the portals, really, isn't it? It's so
Absolutely.
easy now to research a street or a Muse or whatever.
And even if the price is wrong, it's too low. If they get loads of offers in the first week or two,
it wakes them up, doesn't it?
It wakes them up.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's a question of just doing your homework, isn't it? But I do believe in building a relationship with agents, whether you think it's too late or not.
Stephen, the biggest
With your
thing.
power team as well, though, isn't it? I mean, the
absolutely.
amount of deals my accountant and solicitor brings to me.
Absolutely. It's all about relationships.
And management companies as well.
Property management companies. It's
Management
all about
companies are
relationships at the end of the day. Property is about relationships. It's not about sitting on computers all day, tapping out whatever they tap out.
I think I've read this in your book.
Probably. It's all about getting out there, making relationships with people, and working together.
Yeah.
He taught me everything.
And delivering on your promise.
And delivering on the
basically.
promise, absolutely.
Hayley, your question. I'm considering creating a buy-to-let portfolio and I'm looking for the best way of funding my initial purchase. Would the panel consider that either bank funding, private or specialist lenders, or perhaps joint venture partners would be best?
So that's another open-ended question,
Big
isn't
question.
it? So it really depends. So I mean, out of all of those, I find bank lending very restrictive and not very helpful in any shape or form. What about you? But of course, there's criteria that you have to meet. So it depends on you as an individual, how you're buying that. Are you buying it in your own personal name through a limited company? What are you buying? What's the asset quality, the area, the purchase price range? Who are you? What are you doing with that? Is it a HMO or is it a standard buy-to-let? Do you need experience? So all of these things you have to tick the boxes. So it's more about find the property and the strategy and then suit and structure the finance to the deal. That's what I do.
Are you finding a difficulty these days that so much more lending via the banks is done by a head office quite remotely from your local branch, where you used to be able to create a bit of a rapport with your manager or a bit of a track record? That just doesn't apply anymore, does it, really?
It does on some level. I mean, I still sit down with my business development manager and have conversations.
That's impressive, Hayley. I wouldn't even know who mine are half the time.
Yeah,
I mean, these days, that's impressive.
I mean, quite often we are looking at, cash. I use bridging quite a lot. I know that you're not a fan of that. Commercial lenders, more specialist lenders than your bank. Your vanilla bank lending, because I just find them way too restrictive. Of course, as well, it depends on, again, what you're buying. Is the property habitable? Because you have to meet the criteria of the lenders. So if the property isn't habitable and can't be income producing from or lettable from day one, you wouldn't qualify for bank lending. So it depends on what you are buying. Look at what you are buying and the strategy, then look at yourself. Speak to a broker and understand how to structure the finance from start to finish, because it may be that actually it's not mortgageable from day one. You have to purchase cash, bridge, private finance, crowdfunding, joint venture fund, whatever that is, solve the problem, and then go down the route of, you specialist lenders.
Speed is the other thing. I mean, if you need to buy it within a month or 3 weeks or something, then you clearly you need to. You need to look at it probably differently. The clearing banks, I mean, in the old days, I'll keep banging about the old days, but in the old days, you really had the clearing banks, so the Barclays and NatWest, all the big boys. That was it, really. And then in 2008 came along, and 2009 recession came along, bank recession, and then all these new banks appeared, all these new specialist property banks, and they're very quick. Yeah. They're on the ball. They're expensive.
They're much more flexible.
But they're more flexible, and sometimes that's what you need. We tend to deal with the main banks still on a very traditional basis, but we are starting to look at crowdfunding and stuff like that. We've been very slow to the game probably, but we are starting to look at it.
I always find there's a phase one to actually purchasing the asset, solving the problem, whatever that problem is, and then a phase two.
Yeah, which is a refinance. The problem is that's quite an expensive way of doing it, of course.
Well,
can be, but you may not have a choice, of course.
Again, it depends what strategy you're doing. If you're doing buy, renovate, rent, refinance, then
that's what you do.
You're buying, first of all, below market value, you're adding value, you're obviously turning the property into an income producing asset to qualify then for commercial lending.
But again, cost of finance, if it's properly structured, and it doesn't matter, does it?
No, you don't look at the cost of the shovel when you're digging for gold. If it works, it
well,
works.
We like that one. The one thing you're absolutely right. It's all about buying right, isn't it? If you pay, if you pay the right, if you don't pay a lot of money for it, you've got a lot of options. If you pay too much for it, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on that happy note, that's all we've got time for in today's show. So a big thank you to Hayley Andrews and John Howard.
Pleasure.
Thanks for coming in, guys. Join me again next time on Property Question Time. Look forward to seeing you then.